Hey, welcome to another video. Going to jump straight into a couple of questions today. First one being nice and short. I don't know if it's a real question, but I'm going to answer it as if it is, because this is genuinely, I think, an area that a lot of people may be struggling with. It says, I've seen a couple of your videos, you seem like an intelligent man. So I wanted your opinion on being gay, which I think I am. Am I a freak? Look, honestly, I'm completely unqualified to actually answer this type of question. However, I'm going to give you a few different, perspectives on yourself and of life in general to help you, come to terms more with yourself, because this is your journey. Even if you are somebody that's perhaps an expert in homosexuality and things, I don't know if that even exists, but it's just, you've got to understand, firstly, that this isn't just a new thing. I know it's more acceptable in things these days, and there's a lot more information and attention given to it and everything like that, but even going back to the first cave drawings and things, there's still evidence of homosexuality back in those days, and so I don't know where I'm trying to go with that, but the idea is that if you can understand a little bit more about sexuality in general, then you may come to terms a little bit. Just what you've written here as well, this line, which I think I am. If you're unsure, you probably are. I don't know how old you are or whatever, but it's just what makes you more aroused, men or women, like that. It's as simple as that. I mean, I'm sure you can be bisexual as well and whatever. But anyway, that's not the point. The point of this is that the question, am I a freak? Look, the answer is no, basically, just straight out. And I know a lot of people have this feeling in today's society, not just related to homosexuality, it can be any, I know if you consider different, abnormal, on the fringe of something, if you're, a lot of people have that feeling for two reasons. A, because they're made to feel that way because of how society's meant to be, and B, because people want to feel that way. Unless a lot of people, and this relates to people that say they're gay and everything as well, is it comes down to wanting to be different and wanting to be defined by something that's outside of the realm of normality in society. So some people kind of gay in the head, if that makes sense. They're kind of like, so the same when people sort of make themselves sick, or they are sick and they'll never get better because that's their way of being different and they're defined by their illness. Don't confuse homosexuality with illness, but it can actually be that way for some people. So the way I'm going to explain this is, I've drawn a yin and yang. You would have seen this a lot of times before. If you've watched my videos, you would have seen this a few times in my videos as well. What we have here represents you as a whole being, or me or anyone else. Now, within the whole being, if you want to take away the idea of gender, which is male and female, and that's manifested in the physical state. It's how we are, what we look like, it's our energy. What we have inside of us is, if we're a male, we have more masculinity. If we're a female, we have more femininity. But we still have both. Whether we're male or female, we have both. And our gender, if you want to look at it as that, is just determined by how much of one dominates the other and how it's expressed. You've seen, you can see a lot of men that act very effeminate, and women that are a little bit, act a little bit more masculine. They don't quite have those soft feminine features or a soft feminine energy about them. They're more, they've got a balance that's not quite what we're perhaps used to. Doesn't make it bad or wrong, or they're not meant to be that way or whatever, and I'll tie that in at the end for you. So that's essentially, if you can come down to the fact that if you're a man and you think you're gay, you're probably manifesting a lot more of the feminine energy within you. However, you still have a masculine dominance. I can't remember which video I did, but I explained about whether people have yin and yang excess or insufficiencies. And this can be driven by a lot of things, and a lot of it comes from childhood, as I say a lot of times in the videos. If a woman, for example, is overly driven and wants to succeed in business and do this and do that, it doesn't need a man, and doesn't, like this whole we're all equal these day and age and whatever, they don't necessarily have an excess of the yang or the masculine. They may very well have an insufficiency of the yin in the feminine, which may seem counterintuitive because they're a woman, right? But we're only really looking at the outer manifestation of that energy, which is that they look like a female. It doesn't mean that they don't have a feminine deficiency. And that could have come from childhood, as in they didn't have enough love from their mother. They might have had a postnatal depression mother. They related more to the masculine. They didn't get that feminine love that you need as a child to have that balance. And I mean, that's just one of a number of different factors that can play out here. So what I suggest is that when you have these feelings and you're unsure and whatever, first of all, no, you're not a freak. Mainly because we're here in this life, if nothing else, to experience, right? And to learn and to grow, for our consciousness to grow. Now, you may come into this life as a homosexual because there's just something about yourself or sexuality or femininity and masculinity that you need to learn about. And that's kind of your journey in this world. So to try to deny it, put it aside, try to find a way out of it and things is not really what you're actually meant to be doing. What you're meant to be doing is learning from the way you perceive the world. Because we're all a part of the same puzzle, and if we can, if we really got together more as a community, as a humanity, and really all put our pieces together, so to speak, we'd be a lot further ahead than we are. So, the idea isn't to try to learn your way around it. The idea is to try to learn from it. So just know, I'd recommend doing something creative. If you're musical, try to write some music. Just write a poem. Do some painting. It doesn't have to look like it's a masterpiece. Just put some colours in and see how it reflects back to you. These sorts of things can really help to mirror what's going on inside of you and help to clarify it in an external way. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. Art and creativity, I recommend is probably one of the best ways. And just so as long as you're feeling love for yourself, and you're allowing love to be part of your life, then I wouldn't worry so much about the sexuality part. I think I'm going to have to do that sexuality in the Matrix video sooner than later, I think, because this comes up fairly regularly, and it's important to understand how much sexuality is a part of our life. I can't believe how many, as a holistic health practitioner, when I'm working with people, whether I'm physically training them, I'm helping them with an illness, an injury, performance, whatever it is, you've got to understand how much sexuality we carry into it's not like we have all these separate things, we're one whole part, right? So why do people not talk about sexuality unless you go to a sex therapist? If somebody's coming to me because they're sick, sexuality is a part of that. Somebody's coming to me because they're injured, sexuality is a part of that. It's a part of how we communicate, how we are as beings, we're sexual beings. So, what was my point? I have no idea what I was just talking about there. Sexuality in the Matrix, yeah, so it's important to realise that we're not meant to suppress sexuality. There's this real dichotomy where marketing and things uses sex a lot, like a lot of titillating images and things to get people associated with products and things like that, and they use that to sell. But at the same time, there's stigmas and dogmatic beliefs about sexuality as well, so people can be very confused. It's like, on the one hand, they're seeing it everywhere, and on the other hand, they're meant to be, pretend they don't have these sexual desires and these sexual thoughts and these urges and things like that. So if you want to look at sexuality itself, sexuality and sexual energy is pure creativity. That's why art such as Kundalini in yoga, it's sexual energy, Tantra, things like that. And what sexual energy is in essence is pure creativity. Right? I mean, if you think about what sex is there to do, like all the sexuality of male fluids and female fluids, it's all to do with creating life. So sexuality itself and sexual energy is pure creativity. And in today's society, the way the Matrix works, which I'll cover in a separate video, it's aimed at suppressing that so that we have other desires and urges, anger, frustration, things like that start to come up rather than properly expressing sexual energy. So I recommend you start to get more in touch with your creative energy, which is your sexuality, which is your yin-yang, things like that. And you do some art, do something creative, let it come out in a positive way that's going to be constructive, that you can learn from. And then it can take time, I'm not pretending to give you any answers here that's just going to set things up straight away. But again, just to reiterate, number one, you're not a freak. Nobody's a freak like that, even if you want to be. Some of that, I'm guessing you may want to be if you're even asking that question. But if you're wondering because out of fear, am I a freak, am I totally different, is my life not worth living? No, you're here because you chose to be one way or another. Whatever sexual orientation you have is just part of your journey. You've got to learn from that. And it's not bad, it's not wrong, it's not anything else. If anyone suggests that, they're just judging you with their ego. It's not a reality that exists. And then in order to come to terms and learn more from it, I just recommend understanding the masculine and feminine balance, understanding how and why or what you have in an excess or a deficiency in either or. And then yeah, just make sure the love's in your life. If the love's in your life, you're on the right track. Especially the love for yourself. If that's there, the other relationships you have with other people and things are just going to play out naturally in that respect. So I hope that helped in some way. Moving on to how to talk to cops. So I get this question a lot because in conversation, see, there's a lot of things that I've had come through. I've had fines for not voting. I've had fines for traffic offences, trying to fine me for not wearing a helmet on my bike. A lot of things that I've never paid a fine, right? I don't even have a driver's license. I still drive around. I'm still here, right? So how does that work when everyone else thinks they have to pay their fines and things like that? So this is a common thing, and people ask me this a lot. So I'm going to make a few suggestions at the start. I don't want to do all your homework for you. I'd like for you to actually go on the internet and find videos which explain things like bankrupt societies, a difference between a law and a statute, because laws don't exist in bankrupt societies. I've kind of touched on it in my laws video, my money videos and things like that. I will do more of them at a later stage, but I'd rather you get... See, it comes down to education, right? So if you, for example, don't know where to surf in a south swell and a north wind, right, you're going to get skunked on waves. If you know, you're educated, you know where to surf when those conditions are like that, you're going to get waves, right? So if you are, confronted with police and they're giving you fines and they're making you feel all whatever, it's only your lack of education that is going to result in you having to pay a fine or do whatever else, because it just comes down to the knowledge you have. So I'm going to give you a few ways that you can help to put this into your life straight away, but you really need to do the homework on your own. I don't want to stand here and do a 45-minute video trying to give you the groundwork. You guys can do that on your own. So it's bankrupt societies, laws versus statutes. You want to find out why you have a birth certificate, what your straw man is, what your escrow account is, what corporate law is, because at the end of the day, this is why this exists and why I'm going to give you this information, is because you need to understand corporate law. And the bottom line is that anyone, say a police person, is a representative of a corporation, which is Queensland Police or New South Wales Police, Victorian Police, or if you're in another country, just whatever applies to you. These are corporations, right? So in order for them to give you a fine, what they're actually offering you is a contract. The only way you can make that contract valid is to either verbally agree to it. So a police says you were speeding, blah, 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 and you admit to it, or you do this, or you do that, or you sign something, or you pay something physically, that makes the contract valid. If you're presented with a contract as if it was just they are a plumber and you're here and they're saying, here's my quote, I want to do your plumbing for you, and you're like, no, I don't consent to that, because the price is wrong, or you don't like them as a plumber, you want somebody else, or you don't think they're going to do a good job. A valid contract requires two consenting parties. The trick that society has made up is that these contracts are valid from the outset. And you don't even know that it's a contract. You probably don't know that. So what I'm going to do is show you how to avoid things like that. Now, from the outset, I'm not talking about... I brought this up in my laws video, right? There's a difference between causing harm or loss, and there's a difference between force, gender, and control. So you can't go and beat the crap out of somebody and then use this and then try to get out of being accountable and responsible for your actions, because you've actually caused harm or loss to another being. What this is riding around without... This is taking responsibility for yourself and having a government and things try to force control and agenda on you, so you think you don't actually have any personal responsibility, right? So this is something like a parking fine. Now, if you've parked in front of a hospital and somebody couldn't get in, you kind of deserve a fine. If you just parked on this... all those stupid fines people get, I don't need to tell you about that sort of stuff. If you're doing 125 kilometres an hour on a 4-lane highway, and you get booked because it was supposed to be a 90 zone or something, don't pay that. If you're trying to do burnouts through a school zone, you know, then you deserve a fine. So there is still an element of responsibility. This doesn't mean that we're in a free-for-all where you go out and do whatever you want. There's no responsibility to be taken on your own part. So as far as cops, you basically come across three types. You've got the ones that are just doing their job and they probably don't know any better, and you speak to them a certain way. You have the ones that are kind of cool, and you speak to them a certain way, and then there are the ones that unfortunately just arseholes. It's just that they put that uniform on and their ego just flares up, and they want to book you. It doesn't matter what you're going to do, they're just going to try to be an arsehole and try to feel a sense of power over you. So first things first, how to talk to cops. Number one, be courteous.